The Milimani law courts stalled the BBI train that was on course to a referendum in July. Legal experts now say that chances of a BBI referendum being held before next year's polls are next to none. However, proponents of the BBI bill have remained upbeat that a constitutional change through a referendum will take place before August next year, after revealing plans to appeal the Thursday BBI shocker ruling. Our reporter David Mudoka now takes a look at the BBI roadmap and whether a referendum is feasible with barely 15 months to the next general election.
With the clock ticking to next year's general elections that are barely 15 months away, the odds for a BBI referendum being held before then are increasingly on the rise, according to legal experts. Just as a day in politics is such a long time for the BBI bill, an endorsement by the Senate on Tuesday meant it was all systems go for a referendum that was slated for July, only for a 5-judge bench at the Milimani law courts 48 hours later to stop the BBI process dead in its tracks, terming it unconstitutional, null and void. Alongside the declaration was a permanent injunction directed to the IEBC not to hold a referendum. In the backdrop of the judgment and not to give up without a fight, BBI proponents on Friday revealed plans to appeal the ruling at the Court of Appeal, while upbeat that a referendum is still in the offing.
We still believe a new Kenya is possible, that the BBI will give birth to that new Kenya. We will fight to the bitter end.
Legally, two outcomes could arise from the appeal. The appellate court might either reaffirm the High Court ruling, thus dealing the BBI process another major setback, or overturn the ruling.
Filing an appeal tends to be very tedious. We start from there, because you need several things. Number one, you need what we call a certified copy of the judgment, certified copy of the proceedings. Then you prepare what is called a record of appeal. And remember, these are several cases which have been consolidated. And then once you file it, then you have to constitute a bench. Remember, the appellate bench has to be larger than the one that was in the High Court. The High Court judges were 5. So maybe you need about 7 judges in the Court of Appeal. So all that process definitely ought not to take less than 3 or 4 months from today.
And because the High Court judgment has got so many elements, even if you succeeded 50% in the High Court, that will not be sufficient to salvage BBI.
Should the petitioners be able to convince the Court of Appeal that the BBI process was constitutional and the appellate court turns the BBI reggae volume up, therein lies another legal hurdle. In Thursday's 500-page judgment by Justices Joel Ngugi, Teresia Matheka, Chacha Mwita, Jairus Nga and George Odunga, the IEBC was found incapable of conducting a referendum on grounds that it does not meet the quorum to do so. With just 3 commissioners, the court directed that the vacancies at IEBC's top brass be filled before referendum plans are underway, another process that could drag 4 months.
The High Court bench detonated a nuclear bomb on BBI. So that sometimes you can say that you've been hit with a mortar. This was not a mortar attack on BBI.
As for the former outcome, where the Court of Appeal retains the BBI shocker ruling, the proponents could either reappeal the appellate court's judgment at the Supreme Court or begin another push to amend the Constitution from scratch, one that could take years before it culminates into a referendum.
And whatever the Court of Appeal rules, given the importance of this case, it will ultimately find its way in the Supreme Court.
Similarly, should the Court of Appeal overturn the High Court ruling, the respondents might choose to appeal the Court of Appeal's decision, with the possibility of the BBI case being heard by the Supreme Court bench ostensibly high.
If you are to have the case heard and determined, even within the next 4 months, then BBI technically dies.
Even if the BBI were to do to have a referendum in August, we cannot have a general election next year. 0 chance. So that the only way to have an election next year, there must be no BBI.
We are not likely to have any referendum before the elections, which are fixed by the Constitution to take place on the 9th of August 2022.
According to legal experts, with a cloud of uncertainty hovering over the BBI process and no end in sight, some of the proponents of the bill could soon jump ship to prioritize the upcoming elections, thus dealing the death blow to President Uhuru Kenyatta's BBI legacy and ODM leader Raila Odinga's political anchor plan.
So that now if somebody is putting you direct under political pressure, do you respond to that political pressure in terms of seeking power? Or do you still pursue BBI that still must fight a bigger struggle in the courts?
Until Saturday evening, the duo had maintained a loud silence over Thursday's BBI bombshell, perhaps to lick their wounds after the BBI humbling or to stealthily re-strategize. David Muthoka, TV47.
Indeed.